Office of the Premier is also participating. The North Cape Provincial Treasury, the National Development Agency, the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, and also Great North Transport. And I know I may have missed one or two. Other, please pardon me. Ladies and gentlemen, we are meeting for this inaugural public lecture on digital transformation. This is just but the beginning of a journey of a series of public lectures that will follow. And this is coming up as a result of a partnership between the Tshwane University of Technology and the National School of Government. And as I was preparing for this day, I said, when you look at the National School of Government, you must look at it as the guardian of state capacity. Its role is to ensure that public service is not merely a collection of bureaucrats, but a professionalized, ethical, and capable engine of development. The NSG is coming together to partner with the Tshwane University of Technology the biggest contact university in South Africa. Tshwane University of Technology should be looked at as the incubator of future-ready graduates. And you can find this in our new institutional strategic plan, 2026 to 2035, which emphasize that the university seeks to move from good to great. And it seeks to do this by providing intellectual and technical or human capital that is required for the digital age that we are now part of. Without wasting time, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to kickstart our program with a word from the host, the campus rector of the Polokwane campus for the Tshwane University of Technology, Dr. Walter Chamano, who is going to come and talk to us about the significance of this public lecture. Let's put our hands together as Dr. Chamano comes to the podium.
Program Director, I wish to stand on established protocol so that I don't contest the people that are supposed to be doing what we are here to do. Save, of course, to just acknowledge Dr. Paile. I'm saying Dr. Paile in particular because she was one of the first people from the National School of Governance that I met this morning. So I thought that would be proper. Ms. Mkwanazi, I'm happy for the correction that there's an age that is missing somewhere so that we then pronounce things properly. Having said that, I'm seeing there are indeed a number of other people that we probably we should acknowledge. Part of our TUT management team is here, and some of the staff members, they are also part of this gathering. I'm always troubled if I don't acknowledge people from the Limpopo provincial government because these are our official partners. So I feel it will be remiss on my part if I don't do that. The online participants, I also wish to acknowledge you so that we are all clear that we are part of the same event. Now, as we gather today to discuss the interaction of technology and governance, I am indeed reminded of the immortal words of William Shakespeare in Julius Caesar, who wrote, and I quote as follows: "There's a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. And this fortune is on such a full sea, we are now afloat, and you must take the current when it serves. or lose our virtues. So today that title is the digital revolution. We are afloat on a sea of rapid technological change. And this public lecture is a commitment to taking that current at large, ensuring that the future or the fortune of digital transformation works for common good. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered at the Tshwane University of Technology in line with what John Henry Newman famously observed, that a university, and I quote again, is a place for the communication and the circulation of thought, where in perfected and the era exposed by the collision of mind with mind. End quote. Our campus today is that atmosphere of thought by partnering with the National School of Governance, which is the ably Ms. Mkwana. We are creating a space where the rigorous inquiry of academia meets the practical challenge of statecraft. We are here to ensure that inclusive governance is not just a catchphrase, but a verified and perfected reality for our citizens. For us at the Tshwane University of Technology, this lecture could not have came at a better time. We are currently in the first year of the implementation of our institutional strategic plan. We refer to this internally as the ISP 2026 to 2035, a road map for moving TUT from good to great. Our strategic vision is very clear. We aim to be an entrepreneurial university of technology shaping the future. Through initiatives such as holding this public lecture, we endeavor to equip our students with cutting-edge knowledge on topical issues, thus contributing as envisaged in our strategic imperative 1, nurturing future-ready graduates who make a positive impact in society. Additionally, by holding this lecture in Polokwane, we are bringing the digital front to our provincial doorstep. We are proving that a great university is one that ensures that it's provincial and even most probably mainly rural communities are not left behind in the digital journey. Indeed, our efforts are not in isolation. As a campus, we are rooted in the Limpopo province, which is also our partner, as I've indicated earlier, through a number of MOUs that we have signed. The Limpopo Development Plan in particular, for 2025 to 2029, sets a very clear mandate, and that is to drive an innovative and digital revolution that transforms our economy and improve the quality of life for every citizen. The Limpopo Development Plan challenges us to build a capable and developmental state that is responsive and also accountable. I therefore see this lecture as a direct response to that challenge. We are exploring how digital tools can assist us in achieving the Limpopo Development Plan vision of a prosperous and inclusive province characterized by good governance and sustainable growth for all. We also view this through an African lens for the visionary Kwame Nkrumah once rightly observed that, and I quote, "It is with the possibilities of science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field for agricultural and industrial development," close quote. Digital transformation is our modern day science and technology that can make the Sahara of administrative inefficiency bloom into a landscape of efficiency and inclusive service delivery. As I conclude, Program Director, let us remind each other of what Tata Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela once said. Education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. Now, contextualizing it, today we are aiming to arm our students and the public officials with the knowledge to navigate the technological revolution that is upon us. It is going to be part of a contribution that we want to make today. We are therefore honored to be joined. Mr. Lubenga, I hope I got that right, whose work in the presidency is shaping our national digital agenda, and also Ambassador Philip Tingo, whose expertise in digital diplomacy says that our challenges are indeed not just national, but in scale. Welcome to the Polokwane campus, and feel free to participate in this public lecture as we work together to move our university, to move our province, and also to move our country from good to great. Program Director, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Campus Rector, for those words of welcome. I was saying to myself, when you ask an academic to welcome you, they don't just say you are welcome and end there. They will also engage in the issues to demonstrate that they understand what is being discussed. Thank you. We may give a round of applause again to the campus rector. We are moving right along with our program. When we greeted everyone, I'm not too sure whether we greeted our students, our wonderful, wonderful students. Students, are you there? Students, are you there? Miss Mkwanas, our students are here. We are moving right along, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to ask the acting principal of the NSG to come and help us to set the scene.
Yeah, you made sure that there's life in this room. They look so beautiful and so much potential. Good morning. Thank you, Program Director. I'd like to acknowledge our speakers for today, our distinguished speakers, Ambassador Tigo and Mr. Lubega, and acknowledge Maseremule, who is, we always say, is an extension of the NSG as well. Thank you, Rector, for welcoming us, Dr. Chamano. Also acknowledging all the leadership from the TUT, colleagues, students, the very special students that we are here for, and all our esteemed guests. They said I must try and say the local greetings. Let's see if my Zulu is gonna do right. Ne? Abcheng. Okay. Dimacheloni. Tobela. Yes, I got it right. Thank you. So you see, Zulus can try to speak other languages as well. So we gather today at a defining moment in the evolution of governance. The question before us is no longer whether governments should embrace digital transformation, but and impactful. This inaugural lecture stands as a testament to the strategic partnership between the National School of Government and the Tshwane University of Technology, a partnership grounded in a shared commitment to place digital transformation at the heart of governance and public sector reform. It is especially meaningful that we convene here in Polokwane. If digital transformation is to fulfill its promise, it cannot remain in concentrated, already advantaged places. It must extend to every community, urban and rural alike, so that no one is left behind in the digital age. Too often, digital transformation is narrowly understood as the adoption of new technologies. In reality, it demands something far deeper. It requires us to fundamentally rethink how the state operates, how decisions are made, how services are delivered, and how citizens are engaged. At its core, it's about building a public sector that is responsive, integrated, and capable of meeting the evolving needs of society. But technology on its own does not transform governance. Leadership does. Capability does. Without the right skills, institutional readiness, and ethical foundation, digital transformation risks deepening inequality rather than reducing them. This is why building a capable, digitally competent public service is not optional, it is imperative. Today's theme, digital transformation for inclusive governance, challenges us to be intentional about inclusion. Because if we are not deliberate, digital systems can exclude, data can be misused, and innovation can outpace accountability. We are therefore called to lead transformation in a manner that is both innovative and responsible, where progress is matched by principle. We are privileged to be joined by our distinguished speakers who bring both national and global perspective. Their insights will help us navigate not only the opportunities that digital transformation presents, but also the risks and responsibilities that accompany it. At the same time, we must confront our own realities as government. While progress has been made, persistent challenges remain. Fragmentation, capacity constraints, and resistance to change. Addressing this requires leadership that is adaptive, forward-looking, and firmly anchored in the needs of the citizen. Ultimately, digital transformation is not about technology. It is about public value. It is about improving service delivery. It is about expanding access. It's about strengthening trust between citizens and the state. To the students present here today, you are entering a world where governance and technology are inseparable. You will be called upon to shape systems that are not only efficient, but just and inclusive. To public servants, the call is clear. We must continuously evolve, embrace new ways of working, and lead transformation from within our institutions. This lecture is not an endpoint. It is a beginning of sustained and necessary conversations about how we build a capable, future-ready state. Ultimately, the success of digital transformation will not be measured by the sophistication of our system, but by their impact on people's lives. If it does not improve access, it is not inclusive. If it does not reduce inequality, it is not transformative. But beyond systems, beyond policy, beyond technology, this moment calls for leadership. Leadership that is courageous enough to challenge the status quo. Leadership that is visionary enough to imagine a public service that it truly works for all. Leadership that is disciplined enough to turn ideas into measured impact. Where the generation entrusted with shaping a state that is not only digitally enabled, but ethically grounded and people-centered. The responsibility is ours to ensure that innovation serves humanity, that progress does not leave people behind, and that governance remains a force for justice, dignity, and opportunity. Let us therefore not simply adapt to change, let us lead it. Let's not wait for the future, let's build it. And let us do so with purpose, with integrity, and with an unwavering commitment to the citizens we serve. Because in the end, the true measure of our leadership will not be what we build, but who we uplift. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We are still trying to connect Prof. Maseremule. He is the technical guys are working on it. Once he's ready, he will give his lecture. Thank you very much, Acting Principal. Thank you for those words, and we really are on the same page in terms of what we see with this series of public lectures. Let's give again a round of applause to the if there was an opportunity, I was going to say, DJ, play some music while least we wait for Prof. Maseremule. You know, when Ms. Mkwananzi was talking to us, she reminded me of the words by Kwame Nkrumah, who argued that we face neither east nor west, but we face forward. And for us, the digital frontier is our forward. And she helped us to understand that facing forward requires an African public service that is efficient, that is effective, and one that is inclusive. And it can actually do so by utilizing the available digital technologies that are at our disposal. So without diluting her message, I think she was quite eloquent and clear in terms of what we envisage with these public lectures. I'm still waiting for my technical people to give me a signal. I don't know if you remember that time when there were people who were saying, "Mama, just give us a signal." I dare say, technical guys, just give me a signal. Yes, I'm getting very positive signals. He seems to have joined.
Can you hear me, Prof. Mukonza?
Professor Maseremule, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much.
Let me introduce you before you take to the stand. Ladies
Thank you
and
so much.
gentlemen, allow me to introduce an academic giant in public affairs by saying the late Thandekam Kantawire, when he wrote on the development of states, he argued that the state is not only developmental. He argued that the state is only developmental if it has the institutional to act. Policy and practice. And if we borrow from the late Mkandawire, he reminds us that digitization is the institutional capacity that turns the dream of a developmental state into a lived reality for our citizens. Prof. Maseremule is on the line. He is going to help us again to understand the importance of this public lecture that we are jointly hosting with the National School of Government. Prof. Maseremule, I now give you the opportunity to share with us your thoughts.
Prof. Mukonza, thank you so much. And colleagues in the room, good morning. As I was introduced, my name is Professor Machupe Maseremule. I'm the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at the Tshwane University of Technology. I would have loved to have joined you in person. However, it turned out that when we received the invitation, we have already committed to participate in the 5th Human Resource Development Council Summit, which, as I speak now, is taking place in Johannesburg today and tomorrow. Earlier in the summit, the Honorable Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Paul Mashatile, who is also the chairperson of the HRDC, launched the reconceptualized human resource development strategy for the country. At the core of the strategy is what this public lecture seeks to address: digital transformation as a consequence of surging technology in the 21st century. Of course, this is an inevitable reality of our epoch, as humanity is experiencing a major transformation like never before, especially with the interplay of automation, biotechnology, nanotechnology, and communication. As you may be aware, at the global meeting of world leaders in Davos in 2016, the chairperson of this annual gathering, Klaus Schwab, characterized this significant development in human history as the 4th industrial revolution. Of course, Strauss did not coin this phrase, but scientists working on advanced strategies for German government did. Another major variation of this technological advancement has already started to emerge, which seeks to add a human touch to technology, where people now work alongside machines to enhance their existential efficiencies. Some have already started to say this variation marked the fifth industrial revolution. In other words, while the fourth industrial revolution is about increasing efficiencies of human endeavor, the fifth unlocks human potential through collaboration with innovative technologies. We need, as the principal emphasized, we need to leverage this as an opportunity to reimagine how we manage public affairs in the 21st century. I'm glad that this public lecture on digital transformation for inclusive governance is hosted today to take us through how to make use of the technologies of the 21st century as part of the effort to build state capacity and institutional capability. In other words, how do we integrate data analytics, amongst others, in decision-making processes? And how do we use digital technology to optimize service delivery? And of course, how do we manage the risk associated with these technologies? These are the key questions that we are asking, and these are the key questions that I'm looking forward that these lectures will assist us to answer. Prof. Mukonza, I'm not giving a lecture. There are people who will be giving a lecture. Hoping that with these few words, I manage to contribute to what's set in the scene, like the principal did so eloquently, because you indicated in your program that our task is to set the scene. But maybe let me conclude my brief remarks with the proposition that the success of digital governance depends on digitally literate society. I'm making this proposition, indeed taking advantage of this lecture, where we are honored to have, as the program indicates, Philip Tico, Envoy of Technology in Kenya, to share the experience of his country on digital transformation. And I am particularly happy that we also have, and I hope he's there, Mr. Melvin Lubeka, Head of Digital Services in the Presidency, who managed the whole of government digital modernization effort in our country. And being a member of the National Planning Commission, I became familiar with the wonderful work they are doing through Operation Vulindlela, which is leading the country's digital transformation roadmap. And of course, I am as well, Prof. Mukonza, looking at the powerful lineup put together to assist us to deepen our understanding of the lecture itself. I see Mr. Mlindi Masholoku, I hope is there, the Deputy Director General in the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies. And also I see on the program, Professor Mili Baile from the National School of Government, and the other two professors from Tshwane University of Technology, including yourself, Prof. Mukonza, and Izzy Swart. And I can just say that I am going to miss a lot as I have to rush back to the session where I'll be participating in a panel discussion. Prof. Mukonza, colleagues, Dr. Tamano, thank you so much for hosting this lecture. this public lecture. Thank you so much, Energy, for always being our partners in this important endeavor that seeks to make sure that as a country, as institution, we facilitate this important task of ideation on an important topic such as digital transformation. Let me thank you all and wish you all the best. It's a pity that I would not really be with you throughout the program, as I had to quickly go and do some presentation in the session where I am. But thank you so much and all the best. Thank you so much, Prof. Mokonza.
Prof. Maseremule, thank you also for making time to share your thoughts on this important subject. I will tell the audience that for all the time that I've known you, which is close to 2 decades, this is the shortest speech that I've ever heard from you. Thank you, Prof. Insightful points that you raised, including the issue of digital literacy, which I don't think is given as much attention as it should, because you can have the best systems in government, but if the citizenry is not equipped with the digital skills that they need to be able to interact with the system, that system will become a white elephant. And I think that's a very important takeaway from, together with all the other things that you have shared with us. And thank you so much. We appreciate you and all the best in your participation in the other engagement, Prof. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving right along with our program. And at this point in time, we are now going to our guest speakers. As the program clearly indicates, we have 2 guest speakers. The first one is going to be Ambassador Philip Tiko, who is a special envoy on technology for the Republic of Kenya. I'm not too sure my technical team. I need a signal again. And are we ready with we are ready. Ambassador Tiko, can you just
Can you hear me?
just indicate to us if you are
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Ambassador?
Good morning.
Wonderful. Ambassador, thank you very much. We can hear you loud and clear. I've been doing a little bit of lessons of Kiswahili, and I want to greet you, Ambassador. Jambo, habari gani?
Nzuri sana.
Thank you. Asante. Of course, people know Asante san. I'm going to read the short bio of Ambassador Tiko. His Excellency Ambassador Philip Tiko is an award-winning technology and public policy expert, currently serving as the Republic of Kenya Special Envoy for Technology, the first in Africa. Apolitical is a publication named him as one of the 100 individuals leading an artificial intelligence in government in 2005 and 2025 and 2026. And one of the world's 100 most influential people in digital government in 2018. In August 2024, Ambassador Tiko was recognized by Mozilla under the Arise 25 award as one of the 5 advocates leading the development of artificial intelligence in an ethical, inclusive, and transparent manner. In 2023, Africacom listed him among Africa's top 100 most influential leaders in technology and telecommunications. On December 12, 2023, during Kenya's 60th Independence Day anniversary, he was awarded the Presidential Commendation, Moran of the Order of Burning Spear, for his distinguished service to the country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to listen to a man of many accolades. Ambassador Tingo, the floor is yours. You may share with us your part of the lecture. Let us clap hands as the
Thank you so much, Program Director. And thank you for the invitation. I hope you can see the slides that I'm trying to share. I think the subject I've been given today is digital transformation for inclusive governance. And of course, there's a lot that has already been spoken through the previous speakers around laying the context, but I want to frame it around these 6 key areas, of course. And you've mentioned this in your sort of presentation that what age are we living in right now? We've had a couple of industrial revolutions, so I'm gonna kind of reframe what that 5th everybody's talking about is, because I don't think there's going to be a 5th one. It's going to be a continuum of what we're increasingly calling the age of intelligence. Of course, I focus on digital diplomacy and why countries like Kenya and about 24 others think it's important to appoint a dedicated ambassador focused on technology. Of course, the transformation in practice, and I know a lot has been covered by my previous colleagues, issues of risks, the idea of how technology drives public service, but finally, I think the guardrails around ethics and strategy. So quickly, we live in this era, and I really want to frame the entire arc of where we live in right now. So I think we are more or less on this, from 2022, where we are increasingly calling that the age of intelligence, because we've had the 4 previous industrial revolutions were heavily focused on whether it was it was steam, whether it was electricity, whether it's computer. And unfortunately, some of us are still, especially for African countries, some of us are still in the ICT age or in the electrical age, because as you know, 600 million Africans still do not have electricity. But then, of course, this final age, and I don't know why my slide was misbehaving, this final age, I think, is what we are really concerned about, the age of intelligence, where we are only like 4 years in with the rise of generative artificial intelligence, where we are seeing intelligence has become the currency of engagement. So these 4 big mega trends that I think are driving digital transformation. Of course, one, we've seen climate is an issue, and I think with South Africa, you're not new to this. The second one, I think, is demography. The world is increasingly getting very young. Africa's median age is 20. Technology is changing and rapidly transforming. In our last 20 years, we've seen from an iPhone to an iPad to ubiquities around technology to devices that are now connected to our biology, whether it's your smartphones, your smartwatches, to sensors, to cameras that are all over the place, to satellites and other observations. I think finally, and this is where we see the greatest trend, is geopolitics, where technology has become a tool for state sovereignty, but also a tool for redistribution power, mediating international relations. I think so, as I say, so the context, I think, for me is basically understanding that the intelligent age today is in contrast from the digital age, where it was just about digitizing things. Currently, I think the intelligent age is about technologies that have become smarter, they're learning, they're predicting, they're adapting, and all of us, I'm sure, also in this room, you use intelligent technologies. If you are today typing your email, something will complete your email, having learned how you start your emails or how you do your salutations. I'm sure you've taken something around ride sharing. You order food at home. If you live consistently with the ride sharing app from your work to your office, it quickly starts to rename your point of origin work, your point of destination work, or the other way around, home or work, right? So that's basically what you're seeing. So I think the age of intelligence, as you mentioned, demands leadership that anticipates and not react, because we do not have to. What is the scale we are dealing with? These are numbers, and I've shared the slides with my colleague organizers. It's just to say 70% of the world is already on the internet, largely mobile first, especially when you come to countries like ours, whether it's Kenya and South Africa. And increasingly, we are becoming the number one users of this technology. Whether it's Kenya and South Africa, I think we are not so far beyond the other countries that are even building this technology. So what is this exponential change that we are seeing, right? One, I think, is technology, unlike previous times, is impacting everything, how we live, learn, work, and govern. It's also shaping every aspect of our lives. And somebody talked about trust there. I think for me, let me say it also impacts public trust, because in most cases, we are also mediating or leveraging on technology to perform government services. We call it Twitter diplomacy, Instagram diplomacy, and we've seen public policies being articulated in those mediums, and those mediums by their nature are not necessarily neutral. And so there's an element of trust with the rise of big fake news, misinformation, disinformation. But also we are seeing new terrains of contestation, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's geopolitical tensions, but also a depletion of scarce resources, because these technologies are, by their very nature, power hungry. And so we are seeing a sort of a decline on how is technology. What are the core drivers? I think unlike previous revolutions, in this one, there's a lot of convergence. We don't know what to call our phones anymore. Is it a camera? Is it a phone? Is it a typewriter? Is it to make calls? So the phone in itself, is it a movie studio? Is it a sound production studio? So we've seen a lot of convergence of technology, and the phone is the best example. Beyond that, there's a lot of autonomous systems, and I'm sure all of you are glued to your screens. You've seen a lot of kind of drones and those capabilities. I mean, robots walking around delivering things. And so I think it's beyond automation, where it's become more collaboration. So we are collaborating with intelligence. So anything we do right now is a collaborative. It's a collaborative work with some form of intelligence. And then, of course, we are seeing a rapid transformation of society, whether people are losing jobs, whether there's social issues, social cohesion, but also whether there's increased efficiency. The other bigger trends, of course, are these four things. Of course, the world has become one without borders, especially online, increasingly borderless. Any event in the world, real time, everybody knows. Good example is the war in Iran. We are seeing new behaviors, and this is basically this median age of 20, or the Gen Zs, where we are living a very public life. We would not be able to do this before, where we are on Zoom right now, but also a lot of our young people will be taking photos of their food or just taking selfies before doing anything else, living a very public life. And then, of course, technologies are becoming more accessible in smart devices. I think essentially, as I've mentioned, the world is highly connected. But again, just to be clear, there's still a lot of inequalities. And especially in the African continent, if you see this global connectivity map, it will tell you while the world is rapidly digitizing and moving into this very technologically enhanced world, there are still countries, especially in Africa. And if you look at Southern Africa, I think the connectivity is still high. But if you look at the Middle Africa, there are still a lot of populations that are still not connected to the internet. So you have a world that has a very, a massive and amazing experience around technology, including using artificial intelligence. And then you have a world that is still grappling with feature phones or services that are not necessarily online. And so, as you said, paradoxically, while we have a significant movement towards technological advancements beyond any previous history in humans, we still have a huge population that is being left behind. So I think as government, what do we do about this? And that has led to what we call currently a crisis of trust, and mostly a crisis of grievance. And I know in South Africa, you always say people complain. When they're done complaining, they toy. When they toy, they start to ban things once they're done with that. And so I think what we are seeing right now is a crisis of trust in institutions and in most cases, governments. The interesting bit is that teachers are still the most trusted population. And I think it's simply because teachers, yes, impart knowledge and over time have built a relationship with their students. And so potentially this is who we need to emulate over time. We're also seeing potentially, as I said, technology is being driven by technology companies. It's not being driven by countries. So for the first time in human history, we have a new superpower that is no longer member states. It's actually technology companies. And I've just given us a snapshot. And I give a Kenyan example where, for example, for the first time in history, NVIDIA, one of the largest technology companies that builds chips for data centers, just crossed the 5 trillion valuation mark. The GDP of Kenya is $132 billion. So you can imagine. And I can mention Microsoft is about 2, Apple is about 2.7, Alphabet, which is Google, is about 1.7. So a lot of these tech companies are 10 to 15 times more bigger, larger, with a bigger wallet than member states themselves. And that is why I think it was important to start to figure out what technology diplomacy is, to begin to engage with companies as you would engage with countries. Because in most cases, they have the size in terms of wallets, they have the reach in terms of constituency, they make rules, they govern. Meta has what, 2 billion users. In terms of the ecosystem. WhatsApp, I think, has about a billion users. So you can see the numbers. Their constituency are far much bigger than countries, only rivaling, for example, the Catholic Church. And so you can imagine why you need to engage these companies like countries, because they shape technology policy, they shape interactions, they potentially can influence countries, ecosystems, the state of democracy, as we saw with Cambridge Analytica, but also previously in previous elections where social media has become a mediating factor on how populations vote. And so I think with this range of capabilities, we are seeing data growing exponentially. So this year, before the end of the year, we'll have produced more data in 1 year than data we've produced in our entire human existence. That's the exponentiality of how technology is growing. And that's how, because data is the engine of this technology, you can imagine every year on year, producing more data than we've ever done before, it means technology will only grow exponentially. And so digital diplomacy for me looks at 3 big issues: the digital politics that we need to navigate, the policy areas that we need to ensure we create guardrails, especially for ethical use of technology, and the digital use tools that we use, but also we must be very careful, especially in statecraft. And so these are the breadth of topics that my colleagues and I, about 24 of us globally cover. And you can see the range of it, and only increasing. We've counted about 50. These are just the ones that we see, whether it's digital tax and the erosion of the current tax base on the analog economy. We are seeing issues around internet and satellite and the sea cables. We are
I think we are having technical challenges. It's that side. Okay, but they are working on, I'm sure there will be a solution. But I was sitting there and I was thinking, whilst we are discussing about digital technologies and digital governance as a solution to some of our problems, I think this is just a stark reminder that it's not a perfect solution after all. it has its own challenges, which what he was talking about, issues of connection, and so forth. Are we back? Not yet, okay. But while at least we are waiting for him, I hope our students, you are listening attentively. You are very fortunate to be having interactions at this level. For the first time, I thought, even when we were conceptualizing the lecture, we were talking about being reminded here that we talk about the intelligent age. So the intelligent age versus the digital age. That was quite an important distinction that I thought I must emphasize. Oh, it's on inside, okay. I think the other thing that I also got from his presentation is the exponential growth in amassing data, and the statistics that we got from McKinsey seem to suggest that in 2026 we have had more data than the data that we have had previously. I mean, just 1 year beating all the other years previous. It tells you of the direction in which the world is going in terms of the use of data. I'm hoping that there is no. He's joined. Okay.
I am sorry, internet just did what it did. My apologies. Hello.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for coming back, and you may proceed.
Sorry about that. In a technology meeting, technology always fails. So I think quickly, let me go to digital transformation in the age of intelligence. I think for us, how we define it is very clear around how you reimagine governance, economy and society in a way that drives seamless integration of all these technologies to enhance decision making, ensure equity and inclusivity, but also drive life-centric services. I think because these technologies now can enable government to provide services that are very specific, contextualized, to, for example, in the example of South Africa, to specific provinces, not just general service provision. Quickly, I think the building blocks that we think, one, and somebody mentioned previously in the call, how do we modernize our workplace? How do we ensure that we have business applications that actually deliver interoperable, not in silos, to citizens? How do we ensure that the applications and infrastructure support the public servants to deliver? How do we ensure that you can turn the data that I've mentioned into insights for decision making? And how do we ensure that we do all this in a secure environment, and also ensure that technology is not about the technology itself? It's about people, it's about culture, and ensuring that we build capable developmental states, as has been previously mentioned, because we need to strengthen public service capacity. Of course, examples of this, in the example of Kenya, and I know many of you know M-Pesa, is ideally is how do you do payment trails, because you have to get public services paid. You have to ensure that there's a data exchange for the country, but also you have to ensure that there's a form of identity that can be digitally verified. And that's how you create what we call a digital public infrastructure that creates a stack where services can be delivered in a more resilient way. And I've given examples there. We've also seen countries like Estonia that have been pioneering a lot of these initiatives that have onboarded almost 3,000 plus organizations and services online, and ensure that services are provided online, but also ensure an offline off-ramp for citizens. I'll skip Kenya just in that particular case, but I've given also examples of African countries doing the same. So it's not a new phenomenon. And I'm sure South Africa has a lot of these examples, in a way that countries have taken very specific pathways to be able to leverage on technology and innovation and digital transformation to deal with their pain points around service delivery from their particular context and understanding. And all countries, as you see, have very different entry points into this. Of course, South Africa, you have the policy framework, you have smart cities initiatives, you have sort of an agency kind of approach. And that is interesting in terms of how you want to solve particular issues. Of course, the gaps that we continue to see, one is technology without strategy. There's this idea of procuring technologies without strategy. So technology itself defines the strategy and not the other way around. We need a strategy then to get technology on top of it. We have issues around data privacy and security failures. We still are the continent with the largest cyber attacks, and we need to be careful. There's something around exclusion by design, because a lot of these technologies are either built by elites in capital cities, including my country, but also consultants. There's the issue, of course, of silos. Each ministry, department, agency wants to build their own system that are not interoperable with other systems. Take agriculture and health, food and nutrition sits in different locations, yet those two data sets themselves could be quite useful for decision making and action for citizens. Then, of course, there's the threats around misinformation, disinformation. And I know the skills and capacity gap has been mentioned because our curriculums are moving very slowly and not catching up or being at speed with the rapid pace of technology. I think Madeleine Albright said it very well, that citizens, especially in Africa, are talking to their governments with 21st century technology. Governments are listening to them in 20th century technology and providing 19th century responses. How can our young people be on TikTok, Facebook, WhatsApp, and yet we still have suggestion boxes in our government offices for feedback for citizens? So this is something a young person had mentioned to us, just to show how out of touch we are with our citizenry. The second part, of course, is governments are too slow. That with the exponentiality rate and growth of technology, governments are just moving slow. We are underfunded, we are ill-equipped, we are silo in how we have to use technology, especially for public good. The other issue, of course, is, and you mentioned Klaus Schwab in your intro, to the extent that we are still thinking linear, especially in government, yet technology is not linear. It's exponential and cuts across vertical. So how do we shift our mindset so that we stop the nonlinear thinking? And so this new technology called artificial intelligence has also created another kind of challenge, because today we have a technology that can generate outputs from existing patterns, can make predictions, can create new content in many forms, whether it's audio, images, and text. And so I think for us, we think AI in most cases does not understand context, and potentially that's a good thing. So how do public servants or folks or students in public service ensure that you can be the human in the loop, so that you assist and especially mediate and navigate this technology, so that the final answer, the final solution, the final recommendation, the final analysis still remains human, even when we work with technology? Of course, the myth is always that AI is new. AI is not new. And I provided this map so that people understand that AI's first kind of scene was in 1950. And it's just been growing exponentially to this date, right? And what we've seen, for example, AI use case in government is basically around analytical use. It's been around generative text and around sort of some form of agentic use of AI. The simple ones we've seen, I think, for me, has been how do you pattern detect and forecast? A lot of my colleagues do a lot of it for speeches and translation, especially when you cannot speak French or another language, even your local language. But also sometimes we see people using it for autonomous actions. We've seen that in the war in Iran and Gaza, where AI is being used to deploy autonomous weapons. And so we've just created this deck just for people to understand when to use, when not to use it, and when absolutely not to use AI. The fact of the matter is that if you're sitting in the room and thinking you've never used artificial intelligence, you are, by the very nature of the technology. Companies using artificial intelligence, as I've mentioned, whether if you're on Google today, you're using it. If you are searching on a browser, you're using it. If you're on Microsoft Office, you have something called Copilot next to it. If you're on WhatsApp, there's something with a blue circle there, that's an artificial intelligence engine. And so we have been immersed in this world, whether we like it or not. And I've shown that kind of Google, whatever. But the reality of AI, and let me say this to my colleagues in public service, that it's neither artificial nor intelligent. AI is still generative. It will still rely on human generated data. I know a lot of colleagues in the US and the UK and China are trying to, on the frontier, to use synthetic data, but that is highly discouraged because humans are still creative and generating data. So human beings are the intelligence in this ecosystem. So how do you today ensure that you remain the intelligent factor in this era of AI and intelligence? And so I think quickly, to address the gaps, I think for me, we need to figure out how to ensure that we have policy before procurement. One, and it doesn't have to be a hard law. We need to be agile in a way that we create guardrails and roadmaps that regulations are anticipatory and not necessarily hard-coded until we understand the technology, because it moves very quickly. Ensure that we have inclusion by design, whether it's language, disability, women, people who these services need to meet, investing in people, capacity, all the time. Learning is all the time, everywhere, all the time. Interoperability, ensuring that all our data sets, all our department ministers and agencies speak to each other, ensure that we protect our systems, and finally ensure that
Yeah, we have encountered a technical challenge again, and it appears it's all right. So the best we can do is to wait until the problem is solved from the other side, and I'm sure just share with you the Director General of the province is joining us via Zoom, which is a good thing. And I also know that we do have the Polokwane Review newspaper covering our event, another good thing. So it's not all bad news. We are having also good news in between, something to celebrate in the midst of our challenges. But I think it's back. Ambassador, are you back?
Internet has decided to show us what internet is today. So very quick, I think, just in case I get cut off again. So I think the quick points, one, I think we need to move quickly from pivoting to potential, because I think AI has a lot of capacity in terms of how we can, as civil servants or public servants, with our constraints around personnel, to also become exponential and meet the specific needs of our citizens. But to do that, we need to understand that the rules that govern the previous industrial revolution are not the same as this industrial revolution. So we need an nonlinear, inclusive, and collaborative mindset. We need to be comfortable with working with machines, especially in this era of exponential technologies. We need to ensure that our institutions are agile. keep the stability and dynamism of institutions, whether it's your fiduciary capacity, whether it's a human resource kind of backbone, but ensure that the entire culture must shift to the extent that institutions learn in rapid cycles. We need to be comfortable with failure because technology moves very quickly, but also we need to work with citizens, civil society, and other stakeholders and private sector to co-create value that meets their demands. So I think for us, again, I will not belabor this point that we need to be very agile. We need to be able to be comfortable around communicating with citizens, ensure that we capture rapid feedback and communicate in anticipation so that we can respond to customers. So I think for us, we're really looking at a radical shift in this particular space. We need to ensure that the silos really need to go. I mean, that's something that you keep on seeing me insisting on that. We need to invest in infrastructure. The thing about the African continent is we hardly invest in institutions. So invest in digital infrastructure, including connectivity to the last mile, invest in energy, especially if we are talking about digital transformation, invest and fund data, not statistics, including sharing data and building capacity and personal around data. We need to figure out innovative financing because it changes very quickly. It doesn't respond to the current budget cycles of funding. So how do we work and collaborate around innovative financing? And then how do we still ensure that we are within international standards, especially around norms and governance standards? I think finally, I think for me is let's ensure that we continue, yes, literacy as I had a program director, but also fluency. It's just not necessarily to be literate. We also need to be fluent, to speak the technology language, even to have a cursory understanding. And in this case, I talk to especially the leadership in public service. We do not have to all be technology engineers, but you need to be fluent in understanding what is changing, what is shifting, even by definitions, and so that we can understand how to better support our teams downstream and how they deliver services. We need to ensure that that policy and legislation moves, but also in a way that we can iterate and experiment in real time. We need to figure out how to be inclusive as an economic imperative, because if we don't include the majority, we also have a challenge in terms of the potential impact of technology if we do not, in terms of social cohesion. In terms of ethics, I think for me, ethics needs to be by design. And we look at it in terms of 5 principles. That as you work on digital transformation, we need to ensure safety in terms of technology does not harm society. The technologies themselves must be secure from adversarial attacks, data poisoning or manipulation, and we know this is possible these days. We must be inclusive. That technology is not about technology itself or does not amplify existing inequalities. We must ensure in terms of ethics that technology in itself does not come at an environmental cost, that our development should not be resource intensive. And finally, it's about citizens. It's about building public trust. How do we ensure that these technologies ultimately strengthen capable developmental states that has an active citizenry that then delivers outcomes, but also ensures social cohesion? For students, I think for me, again, it's fluency. Not all students have to be data scientists or machine learning experts. It's about understanding your discipline if you're in foreign service, in public service, in economy, in agriculture, to ensure that you are AI literate according to your discipline. And those will be the winners of AI. For the 75 million jobs that will be lost, you need to be in the 133 million that will be created. And the 133 million jobs that will be created will be AI plus AI-enabled jobs. Of course, policy integration, issues around capacity building that needs to be all the time, investing in research and research labs. I think finally, this whole issue of co-architecture, especially with government and private sector. So the task ahead for me is very simple. One is how do we embed digital literacy in every academic program? It's not an ICT issue. Let me dispel that myth. It's about that discipline with a digital literacy augmented curriculum on top of it. The other part, of course, is institutionalizing some form of governance framework for digital transformation and technology as they are being deployed in this rapid pace. We need to ensure that research is embedded in safety and guardrails. Partnership for me is like the final word. The idea also, we need champions in all our disciplines because this things are new and they move very quickly, and we need high-level political leadership, especially to help folks navigate that. The final part, I think, for me, and this is something we're passionate about, is sovereignty. No country, no institution should outsource its intelligence, especially in this era of intelligence. So how your institutions and the country builds its own data, builds its own talent to interpret and annotate this data, builds its own research capacity, builds its own infrastructure, including data centers and capacity, builds its own policy, will ensure that African countries and countries like South Africa that are leading in this continue to ensure that our sovereign knowledge, especially in this era of intelligence, remains knowledge that is derived from us, governed by us, mediated by us, and speaks to our reality. The downside is that if we do not guard our sovereign knowledge in this era of artificial intelligence, then we are, in most cases, under existential threat. So I think for me, with that, I think, and the reality of sovereignty, I think it starts with the data, and we have to think about narrative control and how we reclaim our sovereignty. And so I think for me, we can decide which model we take in terms of our development progress, whether we want to replicate what somebody else has done, whether we want to increase gradually, as you've seen what other countries are doing, or whether you want to do a differentiated model. And my sense of the country like South Africa, with their dynamism and their leadership, I would think the third one would be the best path in terms of building a future that is not necessarily the West or the East, but carving out a future that is your own, mediated by your own people and by your own vision, and not trying to copy others. So I think a point of reflection, as I've said, is how do we ensure that we retain interoperability, we have ethical governance, we continue to ensure that trust is at the center of everything that we do, that resourcing is at the center. There is no cost to sovereignty. We have to ensure that our national budgets align with our sovereign ambitions, and we have to ensure that we crack the paradox around that. And at the end of the day, how do we safeguard trust? Because ultimately, that's the measure of how states function with citizens. And for me, the issue of data and articulation and narrative and engaging citizens with truth and fact is what we drive trust. Even in this era of misinformation, disinformation, the more we build facts, push out truth, gain trust, then we continue to ensure that we have a sense of shared reality. And I think with that, these are just questions I had, and I leave that to the moderators. I thank you very much. And apologize for the connection.
A wonderful presentation from Ambassador. Ambassador, no need to apologize. We are in Africa. We understand. We understand these things. I think he has touched on a variety of issues, and I don't want to get into the details of his presentation because there's going to be a question and answer segment. But he talked about some things that I can't just allow to pass. I think the issue of partnership and Ms. Mukwana, I remember in 2025, NSG and Microsoft South Africa got into a partnership. And I think it talks to what he was actually suggesting as part of what could be done to ensure that digital transformation takes place. And I also like the part where he proposed the three models of public sector innovation, and which depending on the choices, strategic choices of a country, the three models have been put for adoption. Ladies and gentlemen, I think there will be a time for question and answer. We have had quite a number of issues that our guest speaker has put to the table. I hope you were writing down so that when that time comes, you can ask your questions. We are moving right along. Our second guest speaker is in the house. We were sweating, you know, when someone is traveling and he's your guest speaker, anything is possible. The flight can be cancelled, and yeah, we're praying, Mr. Lubeka. Even some of my colleagues that do not normally pray. I tell you, from yesterday to today, yeah, they prayed and even suggested fasting. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving right along. Our second speaker, Mr. Melvin Lubeka, who is the head of Digital Services Unit in the Presidency of South Africa, is in the house. We could not have gotten a better speaker. Those of you who understand politics and governance would understand that when you are talking about the president, you are talking about an institution that is the highest authority in the land, and they make decisions. So we have those that are in that institution. Mr. Lubeka is amongst us. Mr. Lubeka is a South African technology entrepreneur, investor, and public sector leader working at the intersection of digital innovation and national development. He is the head of the Digital Services Unit in the Presidency of South Africa, where he leads efforts to coordinate the country's digital transformation agenda and build foundational digital public infrastructure, including digital identity, payments, and data exchange systems. Mr. Lubeka is best known as the co-founder of Go1, South Africa's first tech unicorn. It's a company with a net worth of over $1 billion, which serves thousands of organizations across more than 60 countries. He has also built and invested in multiple technology and fintech businesses across Africa and globally, and is the founder of Baobab Group, a diversified investment platform. He is a Rhodes Scholar and holds a Master of Public Policy from the University of Oxford, where his research focused on the role of emerging technologies in economic development. Mr. Lubeka brings a unique perspective that bridges private sector innovation and public sector transformation with a strong focus on governments, with a strong focus on how governments can deliver better outcomes for citizens through technology, coordination, and execution. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call upon Mr. Lubeka to deliver his lecture. We can clap our hands. We can continue clapping. Especially students.
So I'm very mindful of the fact that there may be slides that I may be showing. And so I'm thinking whether I should relocate myself unless I'm see-through. So I might figure out how we make that work. But thank you, DDG, for almost escorting me up. I saw you were getting up as well there. It's greatly appreciated. I'm conscious of time, and I ask for apologies up front. I've got an urgent call I need to jump on at 12, but it's a preamble to our conversation, so I'll step back after that particular conversation. But what I want to really cover today is one, gratitude. I think, you know, when I was about government, these spaces didn't exist. And so thank you to the National School of Government and for TUT for actually creating this particular space and inviting me. It's a privilege to share this platform with you, with Ambassador Tigo and others who are going to be speaking and sharing remarks today. And what I really want to try and achieve today is not only speak about digital transformation, but speak about what it means to actually execute on digital transformation over a period of time. Perfect. Thank you much. So I might see if this is possible. I did not go to gym this morning, but I'll get my workout in now. If that's it, I apologize in advance. I will try be see-through. I'll start dancing around. But why I want to focus on execution is because in my experience, often it's not necessarily the strategy that's the issue, it's execution. When one particularly thinks about digital transformation. Say it's remiss of me to start a conversation, not introduce myself. And so my background is in the private sector. Me is something interesting, something to reflect on, because in the private sector, the challenge is one of competition. Whereas in the public sector, it's about coordination, scale, and complexity. And so what I want to try to achieve today is ultimately think about the intersection of those two. What can we learn from the private sector as we're trying to create outcomes and build trust through digital tools within the actual public sector itself? And if let's see if that works. Doesn't work. Happy to go without it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Get way back. Thanks. Cool. Thank you. I think it's important to frame the context of why digital transformation is so important within the public sector. And I think Prof. Tigo touched on some of the elements here. The key thing is around fragmentation, because across governments, departments operate in silos. They don't talk to one another. And what that ultimately results is in rework and manual processes. And that in and of itself can be quite costly when you think about the implications for a citizen. So you think about the poor targeting of services. So you might get a service not necessarily relevant to your particular needs. In the same vein, it creates also loopholes for fraud, which I think costs the government large amounts of money. Similarly, it also leads to duplication. But I think important, I think this was touched on earlier, it erodes the trust between the citizen and the government when they're getting those services digitally. And the question mark then becomes, when we talk about the existing fragmentation that is in government that exists there. And it's not to say that at the time when the fragmentation and the silos existed, it didn't make sense. We understand the imperative of government, but the question is now in a digital age, how do we break those barriers? So to make that particularly real, we think of the archetype of Thandi. And Thandi isn't necessarily just hypothetical. I think her experience is one of many citizens in thinking about how they typically want to access government services. Want to access government services. Actually, a colleague of mine in the presidency shared an article actually this morning about how there was I think about 30,000 SASSA grant beneficiaries here in Limpopo who were actually trying to get services, ultimately because they were taken off the SASSA without necessarily being able to do a verification of proof of life. And I thought to myself, what could technology do today to enable that to not take place? You know, instead of you having to travel, to queue, to then think about how do you actually spend money to get government services versus using technology? Because the reality is these tools are already fluid to some extent. We all may use Instagram, TikTok, Claude, ChatGPT, WhatsApp. And so the question is, how do we also get government services to be similarly or as accessible? And so ultimately, when you think about, you know, the opportunities for digital, it's about thinking through how can we then offer jobs, services, and ultimately improve citizen experience of government as they used to elsewhere in the world. And so ultimately, when you think about digital transformation, it's not necessarily just about changing technology. It really comes down to the core of how do you change the experience of someone who's interacting with government services. And there's some lessons which I hope to share as we go along in that particular regard. My targeting is very poor today. Let's see. I'm wondering which, those of IT announced, hard to be an IT guy and you can't get IT right. Where should I be pointing this pointer? Okay, no worries. I was gonna pick someone in the audience and just start pointing it for effect, but happy to progress from that perspective. And given the context of Tandi, and you'll let me know when I can possibly click through, but ultimately, because of this context with Tandi, it ultimately became a national priority of this particular administration to focus on digital transformation, which wasn't the case before, in that often what you found was transformation took place within departments and was very much siloed, which is almost counterintuitive to the work we're actually trying to achieve. And so what you saw was that at the presidential level, the highest office, one, the unit was created, but in the same vein, it also was put around different structures. So we have an interministerial committee, which is chaired by DDG's minister at DCDT. We also then have an interdepartmental working group, which is a working group of all the key DGs, Director Generals across government whose work touches on IT, because IT and digitization is never just a IT problem or an IT issue. It's about how you bring together different services into one particular way. And that is then supplemented by the work that we do at the coordination level at the Digital Services Unit. But importantly, this is a key reform agenda and does sit under Operation Vulindlela, which is a key priority for the country. And that's been alongside things like the work that's happening with ESCOM and Transnet and some of the key areas of the economy that one is trying to actually transform. And so from that perspective, it really sets the scene that the challenge is execution, because I think what's very clear is that, and speaking to preaching those that understand it, is that all of us have a sense of what needs to be done to get there. I will tempt fate and see if my clicker is working. Not yet. I will progress onwards and upwards. What I wanted to share on the slides is ultimately we've got the prioritization at the government, at the presidency level. The question is, what does good actually look like? What is best in class in that particular way? And so from that perspective, it really comes down to something quite simple. How do we make it easier for citizens to access services? And it's as simple as that. How you do it is the question, but that is ultimately the goal of what success looks like ultimately. How do you say, look, you are able to identify yourself once. When you access government services, you go to one particular place. When you think about information, you don't necessarily give it multiple times. And so ultimately, when you think about that, for us, it's really thinking through how do we have a one government, one person, one touch? And that really is the mantra we're trying to achieve in our work, and really test ourselves in thinking through services. Are we actually honoring that in what we think about building over a period of time? And that's particularly important for us to consider there. Now, in order for us to achieve that particular goal, there are key building blocks, foundations we need to consider. And alluded to earlier, digital public infrastructure, or DPI. And DPI has three core components or Lego blocks that go behind it. One is a digital identity, so how you're able to verify yourself to access the service. Two is low cost digital payments, and there's lots of work taking place there with Pay Inc. and GTP payments, but also importantly, having a data exchange called MIME-Mzansi, which ultimately allows that flowing of information across different government departments, startup and those foundational blocks is you build once, but you reuse them across different instances. And so you have a similar repository, similar experience, same way like when you have a single sign-on, you then have that similar experience as you think about interacting with government services. And by getting those right, we're then able to share those across government so others can build in a particular way. And I want to quickly double click on the identity use case. So identity is so important because if you can't verify yourself digitally, you can't access digital services. And South Africa is an incredible starting point. On this journey, we learned from many other countries. And often you think about digital within government, you hear about India, you hear about UK, but actually South Africa's starting point is a lot better than this. When India began, they never had a form of AID within the country. The UK, similarly, they have gov.uk, but you would have seen online and in the media, they're struggling now to get biometrics. We have about 18 million South Africans that are already biometrically identifiable, which can be thought about how do you bring that into a digital environment. But if you compare that with the experience of, let's say, it being today where you have to fill out a form, bring a certified ID to everywhere you go, you then have to implement, you have to then get that through in different formats in different ways, and compare that to the experience of, let's say, when you go access a banking service or fintech. So I have the privilege of serving on the board at Old Mutual of the bank. And so we've invested over 2 billion Rand in building a bank. And the key thing was how do we remove the friction such that someone can be digital and mobile first to be able to actually access the services of the bank? And I think there's some lessons learned that one can ultimately think through. And so I bring the fintech analogy because in my experience, I think there are probably 4 lessons we can glean from building tech at scale, and I think particularly from fintech. I think one is a user first by design of what experience would you like to have with government services and build that as opposed to mapping it to an org chart or an approval process. I think that's a starting point. The second one is about speed and iteration. You know, implement quickly, learn quickly, and improve quickly. And I think it's about having the iteration cycle that makes sense ultimately to improve a product over time. The other one is around data, which was mentioned earlier. How do you use data to actually drive decision making? What's being used? What buttons are making sense? What services are actually being accessed? I mean, I know DDG Maloko and the team did some great work around the current e-services that exist within government and how are those being used. So you can think about prioritizing them and thinking through how best to service them and improve them. And the final one is about thinking about building platforms and not necessarily silos. Because ultimately, when you think about building a platform, the key thinking is that you begin on day one thinking about not only scale, which is nation level scale, but also connectivity and how do you connect to one another in that particular way. Now, ultimately, my Mzansi is that interface that we're trying to achieve, that one person, one government, one person, one touch. And that ultimately is going to be the single interface where one can access government services. And that's really the goal that we're trying to achieve. It's very simple, but it forces us to rethink how one interacts with government. Because ultimately, for a citizen, every department is government. Yet when you go online and you go to different departments, you might think in a different country. And so how do you think about that citizen experience to actually get to the core of how do you lower that barrier for them to actually access that particular service? And the reality is on that journey, we're making momentum. It's probably been a year since the roadmap's been launched. We have some work going on with digital identity with a policy that's currently being looked at. We're already working on gov.za and trying to use that as our core base and it being redesigned and zero rated to be that government services portal. We've already identified high key use cases, particularly around social protection, around education, that actually enable us to apply these building blocks to certain instances. And so there is momentum, but ultimately it will take time. And I even know that we may not necessarily achieve everything within the next few years, but it's about changing the culture. And I think for many of us entering the field, how do we change how we build and think about digital transformation more broadly? And so when we think about ultimately what we've learned is that there is a foundation that's been set. And ultimately, we've got the right building blocks for us to achieve that particular scale. The question now is, how do we continue to accelerate that, but also more importantly, continue to surface new use cases where this can be applied and will require a change of thinking. I mean, when I built my first technology company, I just finished my master's and we used to work out of a kitchen where we used to have an office and it was a very nice space, but building tech was different. Whereas now in the age of AI, building is different. So it's not only how you build, it's what you build. And I think it's about changing ourselves to think differently. And so for me, I think the key thing for us to consider here is, especially for those who are thinking of entering the public service, and I say, my fellow servants, I think that's where you come in. I think the key thing is to realize that digital transformation is not necessarily about IT. It's something that I think each and every one of us needs to own. I think a point was made earlier by Prof. Masamura about our digital literacy and how ensuring that we remain up to date and relevant, because the reality is we can't be trying to push the core face if we aren't learning and upskilling ourselves and making sure that we are digitally fluent in what we're doing. But ultimately, it's about changing how we think about the world and think about a citizen first. I mean, in all our meetings, I always ask myself, how is a citizen better off what we're doing today? If we can't answer the question, we shouldn't be doing it. And I think it's also important that we always have that as a heuristic that we lean on more than anything else. And I think in the same vein, it's about taking ownership of the outcomes. And I think the reality is our roadmap is incredible, but roadmaps don't change the citizen's experience. And so it's about taking responsibility on actual delivery versus anything else. And so as I guess bring my initial remarks to a close, I think there's one particular idea which I want to land on. Digital transformation is really a technology problem. It's really about the stack you use, really about the backend. It's often about coordination, complexity, and really thinking about what execution looks like and actually getting things done. And so where we are in the country is we have the right building blocks. I think we have the I was speaking at a Alan Gray board meeting yesterday, and I was telling them that sadly as South Africa, our best export are our people. in that we have some very smart people that we produce as a country. And I think all of us here, as we go on and think about how we can serve, let's think through how we put our best foot forward and use the skills that we learn in institutions like this one to be able to actually make a key impact. And everything that we do, let's not forget about the ultimate citizen and think about that Tandi in our different spaces. And so, Master Ceremonies, I will end my remarks here and just thank everyone for this particular opportunity. And it was great to connect. I will still be around, but I need to sneak out and make sure I keep my day job with me, because there's some meetings with our president that has now flown to Spain. And so we've got some things to cover. But I'm here for this opportunity. And I think it's important for us to really answer some of the questions that I think Prof. Tigo left us with around what can we do in our current roles to change how we think about transformation within government. And I think just for context, I'm happy to share my slides after this for everyone who's attending, just because I realized that they were brought up. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Melvin Lebeja. You can see he's a busy man. He's needed everywhere. And we're quite fortunate to get him as one of our guest speakers. We appreciate him. He touched on quite a number of issues that we can connect with. I think one of the problems that is early back is around 2000 or thereabout, former President Thabo Mbeki reminded us that South Africa has very good policies, but and the problems still persist. I wonder why, Ms. Mkwanas, we have been to almost 2 decades, plus 2 decades. We know beautiful policies, but our problem is implementation. Why can't we get it right? Maybe those are some of the questions that he also spoke about. I mean, it's costing government, including financial costs. You also spoke about the user experience, and I'm glad one of our respondents is going to talk to us. I would know about slant towards the need to look at user experience when you are looking at digital systems. So user experience for me is quite important. He spoke about quite a number of things despite the time limitations. Ladies and gentlemen, I now want to move along and invite our respondents. We have 2 respondents. We have a doctoral candidate, Ms. Tshepiso Ndlovu, who is with the department, and she is going to share with us in, I've not been giving time limits, but I'm not, maximum 10 minutes. Ms. Ndlovu, you give us your reflections on the presentations and another issue around the digital transformation. In introducing here, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say the Swan University of Technology is cooking. If they're Kaizer Chiefs supporters, you know your former coach who kept saying he's cooking and cooking and cooking, but we never saw that which he was cooking. But TUT is different. We are cooking, and you are going to hear from Ms. Ndlovu what we are cooking. Going to join us from somewhere virtually. Ms. Ndlovu, over to you. Thank you. We may clap our hands as we welcome you.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Program Director, distinguished guests, colleagues, and students, thank you for the opportunity to respond to this inaugural lecture. Being part of this session today, one thing is clear. Digital transformation is no longer a technical conversation that's happening somewhere in server rooms or procurement documents. It is a lived experience. It is felt by the citizens standing in queues, students accessing learning platforms, by entrepreneurs navigating government systems, and by public servants doing their work every day. Let me begin by thanking both speakers for setting out from different but deeply complementary angles. What is debatably one of the most consequential questions of our time, how technology reshapes power, governance, and the lived experience of our citizens. Ambassador Tigo reminded us that technology matters not because it is new or sophisticated, but because it has become structural. It shapes global diplomacy, economic competitiveness, and increasingly national independence. Digital transformation, as we heard, is not the digitization of forms, but it is the redesign of institutions for a digital society. And crucially, Africa's engagement with this transformation is no longer optional. The question is no longer whether Africa will be digital, but whether it will be digitally dependent or digitally sovereign. His discussion on the age of intelligence, digital diplomacy, and the role of the special envoy on technology highlights something fundamental. If infrastructure once defined geopolitics, then data and data rules defines it today. Without deliberate engagement, Africa risks being a testing ground rather than a rule maker. But perhaps the most important message was this: the deepest risk in public sector digital transformations are not technological failures, no, but they are governance failure. That speaks to your fragmentation, your exclusion, weak ethics, and policies that lags behind innovation. Mr. Lubega then grounded this global reflection in a practical reality of the state, how technology actually shows up in the daily business of governance. His focus on national development, fintech, and the work of the Digital Service Unit at the Presidency reminds us that digital transformation ultimately succeeds or fails where citizens meet the state. It succeeds when services are simple, reliable, and humane. But it also fails when systems are built around organizational silos rather than user journeys. What connects the two perspectives, one global and diplomatic, the other operational and domestic, is one thing: user experience. User experience is often spoken about as a design concern. In truth, it is a governance concern. Poor user experience is not a cosmetic flaw, no, but it is a policy failure. When digital service is confusing, inaccessible, or unreliable, citizens don't experience it as a technical issue. They experience it as exclusion, as inefficiency, or to some extent, disrespect. Over time, these experiences erode trust in the institutions themselves. Fintech has precisely thrived because it understood this early. It designed for speed, clarity, and trust, recognizing that citizens tolerate very little friction where money, time, and dignity are concerned. Government does not need to imitate fintech, no, but it must learn from it. That services must be built from the perspective of the user's lived reality, not institutional convenience. This is also where resistance towards digital transformations take root. Public servants resist not because they are opposed to change, no, but because systems are often imposed without improving how work is actually done. Citizens disengage not because they reject technology, no, but because digital services frequently fail to resolve real problems. Good user experience is therefore not optional. It is the difference between adoption of this digital transformation, those digital platforms, or the abandonment of those platforms. So for policymakers and students of public affairs, the lesson is clear. Technology is no longer a back office issue. Every policy decision now has a digital expression. Understanding governance means understanding how rules, ethics are coded into systems and how power is exercised through these platforms. And for higher education and the public sector, particularly around AI, the call is restrained with purpose. Ethics cannot be an afterthought. Strategy must be anchored not in what technology can do, but in what society needs and what citizens trust. If there's one unifying message from the two speakers, it is this. Digital transformation is ultimately about people, about the experience of the state, their participation in the economy, and their confidence that technology is working for them and not on them. As we move into this discussion, the challenge before us is to ask not only how fast we digitize or how advanced our systems become, but how human our digital state remains. That, I believe, is the true test of meaningful digital transformation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, TUT is cooking. And the taste of the pudding is in the eating. You have heard for yourself. Thank you, Tsepiso, for the wonderful reflections that you have shared with us. And indeed, you are correct. Digital transformation is about people. It's not only about systems. It's not only about the technology. It's about people. Indeed, I will not repeat what you said. We are moving right along, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have reflections from Mr. Mlindi Mashologu, Deputy Director General from the Department of Communications and Digital Technology. I will read his brief bio here. Mr. Mashologu is the Deputy Director for Digital Society and Economy at the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. He brings along 28 years of ICT experience and also in engineering, digital transformation in South Africa and Africa. He is responsible for developing and implementing policies for emerging technologies, which include AI, blockchain, the metaverse, cloud computing, and Internet of Things to drive digital innovation, government transformation, and citizen empowerment. With expertise in network engineering, ICT, infrastructure, cloud computing, and big data, he aligns digital ecosystems with national development goals, a thought leader in futures and systems thinking. Mr. Mashologu uses scenario planning techniques to shape strategic policies that enhance government efficiency and public engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Mr. Mashologu to the platform.
Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, everybody. I think let me lean with the protocol that has been observed, so that I don't forget people that were already mentioned here. Colleagues, I just want to take this opportunity to just respond and just introduce like just a few minor things as well in terms of the work that we do from the department in supporting this type of work. But also I think I need to appreciate the thought-provoking insights that were shared by Ambassador Tigo as well as Mr. Lubenga, and their contributions really remind us that this transformation is not merely a technology adoption, it's fundamental about reshaping governance, but also, rethinking development pathways and redefining the relationship between the state and the citizens. But colleagues, I just want to highlight how then digital transformation in a VUCA and geopolitical context. As you would understand, colleagues, this term of a VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. So we find ourselves that digital transformation is no longer optional, it's essential for resilience, but also competitiveness as well as national relevance. And at the same time, we understand that, we are living in a deeply intertwined geopolitical environment. Technologies such as AI, cloud computing, and data infrastructure and digital platforms are now strategic assets that influence the global power, economic sovereignty, as well as development trajectories. And I think as Ambassador Tigo highlighted, digital diplomacy reflects a new reality. Countries are shaping global influence not only through trade and politics, but through their ability to define digital norms, standards, as well as government frameworks. And I think then from the South African perspective and the continent as well, so this represents, two dual imperatives, whereby we have to try to reduce digital dependency and strengthen sovereignty, but also actively participate in shaping the inclusive global digital order. And how are we going to be doing these, colleagues? I think let's start with framing the digital transformation through the foresight and systems thinking. In this complex environment that we find ourselves in, our responses must be grounded in foresight and systems thinking. And I need to highlight this, especially to the students, that foresight enables us to anticipate technological disruptions as well as the geopolitical shifts, while systems thinking allows us to understand the interconnected nature of infrastructure policy, institution skills, as well as society. And also, I need to highlight something as well, that we sometimes see digital transformation in a false dichotomy between technology and governance, but in reality, these are inseparable. Each shapes and reinforces each other. But then what are we doing currently in the South African landscape in terms of building, the digital policy ecosystem? And I know, Program Director, you said we've got nice policies and we keep on writing those policies. It is our job as public servants as well to make sure that we don't live in a vacuum, but there are some policies that we build. And I will really encourage people to really look on these policies that I'm going to mention here. The Electronic Communications Act, which is the foundation of the sector that we operate in, the digital technologies sector. The ICT Policy White Paper of 2016, which was articulating the vision for inclusive digital society. The National Government Strategy and Roadmap, that was in 2017 when we started this work of digital government, colleagues. And you've heard Melvin when he talked about, the journey of time. There were some e-services that we developed from this strategy, that the National Government Strategy and Roadmap. But we do have also the Digital Economy Master Plan, which positions digitalization as a driver for growth and inclusion. And in 2020, we had the Presidential Commission on Fourth Industrial, so which also shaped the strategic interventions in terms of the areas of AI, digital infrastructure, and the digital roadmap that Melvin spoke about. And the last few it has got a lot of interventions, 86-page document that came from a lot of research that we did as a department, 2026. But importantly, colleagues, this ecosystem, there are some policies that are also trying to strengthen this environment as well of digital transformation, which include the National Cloud and Data Policy, which provide a foundation for secure, sovereign, and efficient management of South African data and cloud infrastructure. The National Digital and Future Skills Strategy, and I think most speakers have spoken about, the skills development and how we need to have to be digitally skilled. So this strategy addresses the urgent need to build digital capabilities across society. And we're currently now developing the digital competency framework, which will guide the standardization and assessment of digital competencies within society to participate in the digital economy. But colleagues, I just want to also now talk about, what should we do from policy to practice? And it talks about now how we navigate, the complexity in this VUCA world. And four most critical things that we need to do, it's a resilient digital infrastructure, which is supported by cloud and data governance frameworks. The integrated platforms and systems, reducing fragmentation across departments. And I think most of the speakers have spoken about this. And Melvin spoke about the DPI foundation that we're currently building. So it's one of the things that is going to assist us in terms of, trying to address this fragmentation. But also we need a digital skilled society, and as well as the public service, that is enabled by the digital and future skills and institutional capacity, and leadership guided by frameworks such as the digital competency framework that I just spoke about. So, colleagues, as I go to the close, I need to highlight the areas of AI data governance as well as strategic autonomy. We know that the artificial intelligence and data governance are at the center of both digital transformation and geopolitics. Through the policy that we just published, Draft National AI Policy and the National Cloud and Data Policy, we are trying to lay the foundation for ethical and transparent AI systems, secure and sovereign data management, inclusive data ecosystems, as well as local innovation and capacity. But beyond these frameworks, we need to ensure that these technologies contribute to our preferred future, one where digital transformation reduces inequality, enhances service delivery, as well as strengthen the democratic governance. So as I make a call for action, colleagues, as I leave here today, to the public servants in this room, I just want to say that we are operating in a VUCA environment where leadership requires agility, foresight, and the ability to navigate complexity. I know that in government, we sometimes work in a very linear way, and it doesn't necessarily work in most of the time. Also, we need to understand that digital transformation must be embedded in both strategy as well as its execution. To the students, I think you are entering, a public sector that is being reshaped by technology, data, and geopolitics. Your role should be to be able to apply systems thinking, embrace innovation, and help build a capable and ethical digital state. And to the lecturers that are here as well, we really, putting our trust in you to make sure that, we can really assist us in terms of moving forward. Colleagues, as I close, I just want to say that if we have to achieve a meaningful impact, we must anticipate the change through foresight. You'll hear me, I talk a lot about foresight. I'm a future student, colleagues. So I really, it's one of the fields that I studied, and I feel that we really need, especially when you look into government, because you'll find that we normally plan on 5-year cycles in government, which is not enough. So when you do future studies, you make like a 10 to 50-year projections, and you make sure that you can build scenarios for each and every possibility that can happen on those. But we need to also manage the complexity through systems thinking, but we need to build capability through skills and competencies, strengthen the sovereignty, and also collectively shape the preferred future that is inclusive, ethical, and sustainable. Colleagues, let's move from policy to practice, from fragmentation to integration, and from uncertainty to purposeful coordinated action. I thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much, DDG. And I must just prepare you because your colleague in government, Mr. Lubeka, is not here, to answer questions. Don't say I didn't warn you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving right along. We are now going to allow participants to come in. Participants, meaning yourselves and those that are online. I was told that at some point we were at about 250 participants online, which is a very good number, if you ask me. Yes, you can raise your hand and the mic will come to you. I'm expecting, yes, thank you. I see you introduce yourself and where the institution that you're coming from, and then yes, I see my colleague, Mr. Mabitsela's hand is up. I'm expecting questions from, yeah, one of our students at the back there. Yeah, continue raising your hand. The cameraman wants to.
And then we can share the.
Oh, 1, 2, okay. Yes, we're going to the first. You can shoot right away.
I'm a digital architect. I consider myself a new age records manager. My research and my niche in what I do is on smart technologies and how they can be implemented into archives and also how we can take archives to people. So I want to say that I hope that this session made you see that as government, the FOMC are moving towards the right direction. If you just look at what the president is doing and the protections that they have. So please don't be afraid to cross over. When you finish with your studies, you will find people more versatile that are more interested in digitization. I've also been privileged to serve on quite a number of committees, both nationally and provincially, on digitizing on digitizing records. So I just want to say and assure the young people in the audience that the government is moving towards the right direction, and we are here to support you in everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. I think that's very important. That's a very important encouragement. The campus rector says he likes that. I think the encouragement for me is important because the general picture of government is that it is old-fashioned, bureaucratic. They don't use technology. Yeah, that's where you find generally, yeah, old people, and the young people don't prefer joining government. And students, you have heard for yourself, government is moving with the wave of digitization.
Thank you very much. My name is Mr. Abizela, a lecturer for public management. Okay, thank you for the session. It was more informative. And I was just asking myself, especially in terms of what we're being presented here on, what role do humanities and science play in a digital futures? I was looking that in terms when they explain. And again, what does the digitalization mean beyond efficiency and innovations? What does that mean? And lastly, I was just looking that because most of the time I know that we have emphasized on digitalization, but again, there are negative impact of digitalizations. I was looking that maybe I can get something in terms of the speakers. Well, what are the impact and which are negative that need to be fixed? Because everybody is happy that we are moving to digitalization, but again, there are consequences on that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mabisela. I think the speakers here, Mr. Mashologu and our ambassador, he's still there. The ambassador is still there. Is that? Okay, we are proceeding, but Mr. Mashologu is here. He has all the answers. Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. My question is obviously to all the presenters. It's with regard to the relationship between technology in general, not ICT or digital, the relationship between technology, employment, and development, because there are myths which are attached to technology. And I just wanted to check that insofar as that is concerned. And then I think it was the ambassador who indicated that between the period January until now, there is a substantial amount of data that has been accumulated. So I wanted to understand as to whether that data, is it new data or is it data that existed but it was previously not discovered? The other issue, I think it came from Melvin, if I'm not mistaken. It's with regard to a government previously leading insofar as technology is concerned. But those gains has been reversed. Currently, it is the private sector which is leading insofar as technology is concerned. So would it be is government best placed to be leading insofar as technology is concerned, or it's a government best place insofar as enabling technology to flourish and also, you know, new entrepreneurs to emerge? Yeah, I think those are my questions.
Before you hand over the mic, can you just tell us where your name and probably where the organization you're coming from?
My name is Surprise Mutiba. I am from Limpopo Department of Agriculture and Rural Development.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. As the mic is moving to the next person, I'm going to ask a question that is coming from our online audience. The question reads as follows. How can AI-driven tools as part of digital transformation initiatives improve transparency, effectiveness, and fairness of e-recruitment systems while addressing unemployment and digital skills gap within a province such as Limpopo? There is a question, I'm sure it's quite clear. The ambassador and Mr. Masholo, it's for you. It's not for us. today we are passing on the, the questions. Yes, we can go to the next. I saw a couple of my students. Yes, you can ask.
Greetings. My name is Mafifi Shahon. I'm a third-year student doing diploma in public affairs. I have questions to Mr. Lubega. My first question is that how can government the need for digital innovation with concern? Then my second question is that going towards the local government elections, how can this digital platform be used to enhance the voting process of elections easier, especially to the youth in South Africa? I thank you.
Thank you. Prof. Pile, I will repeat again. TUT is cooking. Yes, we have a question at the back.
Good day, everybody. I am Olutum Kanazi, and I'm a second-year student that is currently studying Diploma in Public Affairs at the Tshwane University of Technology. My question was aimed towards the ambassador, and I wanted to know that how can digital technologies support climate resilience and sustain development in the South African development community countries? And my second question is, what lessons can South African development countries, community countries learn from Kenya's approach to AI governance and digital policy? Thank you.
Nice and sweet. Yes, we have him, and I think we're going to have the last three questions before we get responses from our guests. Yes, over to you, briefly.
Good morning. My name is Austin Mailula.
Let's allow him to speak.
And I am a student of, I'm studying public affairs. So I have two questions. The first question is that, like, the digital device, what do you call, particularly in rural provinces and medical groups, what strategies can the government implement to improve access to the ICT, and what challenges are still limited the process? And the second question is that since in South Africa we have a high rate of unemployment, so I want to understand, how will digitalization help in reducing this unemployment rate for especially the youth?
Thank you. Simple and straightforward. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Prof. My name is Khaopalelo Molelekwa, and I come all the way from Northern Cape Treasury.
Wow. Clap hands for him before him. Northern Cape.
I was gonna pose questions for all the speakers, which I have outlined, but I was saying that because one now students giving us the answers whilst we are cooking, one gets worried. But for all the speakers, what worries me as a government official who is about to retire very soon, in fact, I should have retired 50 years back. It's only that, I don't know, some of us can't just go. I came here expecting to hear how government or South Africa can claim a stake in the digital world, or the AI world, because we depend on foreign nationals. I was also expecting from Kenya to hear ownership of these devices or even to cloud or to anything. Because once you depend on any other nation to secure your information and to transact, it means you are vulnerable as a country. Now, as a treasury official, one would expect our students to look into these SS youth and leaders of tomorrow, to look into the issues of ownership with the view of deepening equality and to ensure that all our citizens are included, not excluded, as well as for accessibility, because it tends to be for the affluent, whilst the bulk of our citizenry do not have access to such, because data on its own is an issue. Connectivity is another matter. I mean, we just experienced during the sessions that we lost connectivity because we do not own anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the issue of sovereignty comes into question. And before she speaks, I just wanted to touch base on something that you raised about students asking questions. You know, previously I thought asking questions is a sign of ignorance until I came across literature from philosophers such as Socrates, who actually said, asking questions is a demonstration of understanding issues. Maybe the level of the question. In fact, if you listen to them, the level of questioning tells you that they have an appreciation of issues. But I just wanted to pass through. Yes, next. You can come.
Thank you, Prof. My name is Gillian Mahange. I come from the National Development Agency, but also a student here at UT. I have 3 questions. The first one is to say, I hear what government is doing, especially the policies that they are having. But how then do we as government, how do government program interface digital transformation with the indigenous knowledge system? That's the question that I want to be cleared on. The second one is that, yes, we are talking about digital transformation, but I had hoped that the presentations today will touch based on how then do we invest in a foundational infrastructure where we are going to prioritize investing in infrastructure that is affordable, and also the internet access, looking at the rural context of our province. And the third one is to say, how do we envisage developing protocols and provide support for ethical digitization for indigenous knowledge system to ensure that there's community ownership in whatever we are doing in terms of the digital transformation process? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Straight to the point. I think there was one. We know we have a number of questions, but because of our time, we are going to end with here. And I will read a question from the Border Management Authority. I think we'll end there. I continue engaging even when we have our whatever we are going to be provided with. We will be talking about the issues that have been raised. Yes, you can go ahead.
Greetings to everyone. My name is Bitumela Matunyane. I'm doing my second year here in TET doing public affairs. So my question is towards Mr. Mlinde Mashulung. The first one is, what is the most challenging part of turning digital policy into real service that citizens can actually use? The second one is, where is South Africa falling short in digital transformation and what needs to change urgently? The third one is how do you ensure that rural and underserved communities are not left behind? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lubeka, I've strategically asked you to come and sit close to Mr. Masholo so that he can brief you on some of the questions and you can share the load of answering. I'm going to now ask the last question that has been posed virtually. It has been, I think the author is Nwabisa Dunyelwa from the Border Management Authority. And the question reads as follows. Given the continued reliance on manual paper-based filing systems in the many South African government departments, what strategies can be implemented to accelerate digital transformation for record keeping? I think this question is coming from a practical of somebody who is doing, who knows what he or she is talking about. So I think that's the last question that Mr. Masholo will brief you some of the questions that were directed to you. I hope our ambassador is also available. He is not. Okay. But the two speakers, I think, will respond to we'll start with Mr. Masholo since he was here, and Mr. Lubeka will then give us his own responses.
No, thank you, Program Director. Program Director, I will take some of these questions, not in a real particular order. And I was not writing with my pen. I'm actually very fast when I'm writing, while I'm supposed to be, using the digital technologies. But I think if I can start with the question of Ndade Mabitsela in terms of the negative impacts of digitalization, I think we have got the prevalent, and it's one of the things that we still have to really address as a country, because you see that we actually sometimes get a lot of cyber breaching, and those are some of the negative implications that we see as we are going, more services online and people getting online, but also the issues of deep fakes. And it's been prevalent now, and it's one of the areas that we're trying to address also from the AI policy, because I mean, for most of us who talk a lot, in these public platforms, so people then will harvest your voice and they will publish something, then you say that no, but Mashologo should not be speaking like that, or should not be talking on this. So it's some of the things that we're trying now to address with this policy, to say that we need to be vigilant. We need to make sure that, we protect the citizens in terms of, some of these negative impacts of. And then in terms of Ndade Motiba from Limpopo Department of Agriculture, the role of technology and employment. This is a critical question that, we've been grappling with, because the more we digitize, the more people think that we will lose jobs. But that doesn't mean that we should not digitize. Because if you were to look on robotics started some time ago. And people, especially in the manufacturing, they were thinking that, no, the robotics, they will take our jobs. Yes, some jobs were taken, but new jobs were created. And I think we need to take this in a spirit that there are new jobs that should be created. And also, that also talks to the role of the universities and all that, that we need then to anticipate what new jobs should be there in the market, so that we train the people not on some, of, the careers that we can see that they are really going to be impacted by technology. So I just wanted to highlight on that. Melvin, there was a question here that I think you said something about government leading in technology at some time, and now private sector is leading. But what I can say on that is, as government, we have no real ambition to be like the leader in technology. All we need to make sure in government is to make sure that we put the right processes in place, and we make sure that everybody can participate meaningfully in the technology-driven society. But I think one of the things now that we are trying to do is to look on the areas of open source. I know when people talk about open source, everybody like raises their eyes, saying, why, but why open source? We do have everybody that is already in there. But I think looking on the current geopolitics, it actually pushes us now to say that we need to start developing our own homegrown solutions that are cast in the South African market or the African continent, so that we don't rely on the foreign players and all that, because we know the challenges that we're currently facing. If the people in the White House can just say that switch off Microsoft in South Africa, you can imagine the impact that it would have. So these are some of the just thinking about as well. And the area of e-recruitment, AI, one of the things that we are advocating on the policy that we just gazetted is the area of sufficient explainability. So when it comes to AI, we don't want AI to be treated as a black box, whereby you just come true, it will be the right information. So you need to understand, how did the AI come to a particular decision? So it's some of the things that we're saying now, that we need to have sufficient explainability when it comes to AI, especially on the areas that that will have an impact on humans and all that. Especially if you were to look on, you're applying for a job and the AI is used to just assess those CVs. I mean, you need to see that, okay, there is an explainable way of seeing how did it come to reject you on policy. But also one of the things that we're trying to say, have what we call human in the loop, whereby we need to put a human at the center of this technology. Otherwise, if the technology is led to just run on its own, a lot of things can really go wrong. And if we can address some of the questions from Mafifi in terms of balancing between innovation.
You can touch maybe the last two important ones.
Yes. Okay, on this one, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is to make sure that, as government, we can be innovative. But also there are entities in government like your Technology Innovation Agency, that it pushes and then build the startups. And also in the department, we have got a program called the Digitech, which falls under me, where we are trying to see what people are actually doing in terms of innovation, and also try to bring those innovations and make sure that they can be marketed in the world stages and all that. I think the last one that I want to address is the issue of the electronic voting. Last year, we had a conference that was held by the IEC. I presented there in terms of what needs to happen in terms of electronic voting, but I think there is still, a little bit back to say that what if then, the system gets hacked and all that. So that is why then I think they say that we need to have a roadmap of maybe 2033 or so, when we can start introducing the electronic voting. The last point is digital divide. I think I need to start to at least put on that one. There are a couple of programs that we're doing in the department in terms of the digital divide. And I know here in Limpopo, there is Limpopo Connect. I know that there are some challenges with Limpopo Connect, but it's some of the initiatives that can be used to drive the digital divide and make sure that people have got meaningful connectivity. And in some of the stages that I normally talk, I normally say that we need to see broadband as a public good. It's not a government stance, it's my stance. But I mean, if we can take broadband as a public good, whereby we're saying that broadband should be deployed, not just for profit, but to make sure that it can enable all the other services that we want to do. I think let me end there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I heard you gave two conclusions, two last points, and you remind me of my pastor. He concludes 10 times before he stops his sermon. Yes, Mr. Lubeka.
Thank you, Program Director. I know you did mention that there was prayer and fasting prior to today, so I'm glad that you've kept the theme there. I think just to some of the questions that were raised and I was able to catch, and thank you for the grace in that regard. I think it's important to clarify that we're very intentional about wanting to build the capability to build and manage within the private sector and within government. I remember when I first particular role, I was speaking to colleagues at DPSA, which looks after the administration of civil servants, and having a meeting with that and some private sector colleagues. And the reality is that one of the big four, big five banks has twice as many IT professionals as government does as a whole. And so you have to be very, like, as an example, I think the number was about 6,000 IT professionals within the civil service. Standard Bank has 13,000 IT professionals. And so you have to realize that the benefits of the work we're doing is not only for government, it's for SA Inc., the country as a whole. And that's why there's so much support from civil society, from private sector, from public sector. But the key intent, even why I was very intentional when I was approached by the presidency to do this role, is that we have to build the capability within government, because the interests can always be misaligned even if they're aligned today. And so it's important to say that it's not about who builds technology best. I think for me, it's about who's best placed to build services that matter, and it's government, because we have the end-to-end process and we understand the citizen needs better than any private sector company will, as opposed to say that categorically. I think there's some interesting points I got towards the end there around, starting where you are, because the reality is there's lots of documents within government and even within society. When I walked in here, I saw registers being signed. I mean, the reality is the different things to consider on this particular journey. One of my pieces of research when I was studying in the UK was around access. And so just because you give someone a tablet doesn't mean they have access. Just because they have internet doesn't mean they have access. It's about how do they use the connected devices for a particular purpose. And all of us have a connected device, but we don't use it in a particular way. And so when we think about our process, what are the key processes that we can work with you on to digitize? And so, for example, in the Department of Justice, it's about thinking through how do we help with policing and justice in the master's office, because lots of papers there as well. But you can only spend so much time on historical information, and ask the question is, what information are we capturing today that we can capture differently? And as I said at the beginning, it's about walking before you run. And so there are no easy answers, because it's costs, it's system, it's risk. I mean, if you are trying to digitize something, let's say with in the SASSA ecosystem, if you're messing up that system, is affecting the livelihoods of key people. And so we have to take our work very seriously. It's not a matter of saying, oh no, stop filling out that form. You must have an iPhone 617 to access, to the point around inclusion. And so I think we have to be intentional, but it doesn't mean that we can't start where we are, which is what we're doing.
Thank you very much. Let's clap hands. We've got, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to proceed right ahead. And at this point in time, I'm going to call Professor Mili Paile. Please take note, I am not going to be speaking as after Prof. Mili Paile, we are going to have gifts to our participants, and we will tell you the next stage. Prof, you can come forward. Let's clap hands as she is coming.
Program Director, a big thank you. I share the gratitude and appreciation already expressed in different ways in the room. And it is a beginning marked in a very special way. Allow me to mention my highlights in this manner. Number one, for me, highlight is that nurturing of a possibility and execution of an idea does not depend on positional authority, but can emanate from anybody, anywhere, who is driven by the understanding that spaces for innovation, for creativity, for influence exist everywhere. I'd like, through this highlight, to acknowledge my colleague, Mr. Komotso Hadebe. You are tall, they've seen you, but may you please stand. Thank you. The big driver behind what's happening today. Ably assisted with a complementary understanding. I'm acknowledging senior colleagues who have taken seriously the spirit and obligation to inclusivity with deliberate feedback loops in collaborative learning spaces, such as we have here, in innovating in the midst of these very, very energetic, enthusiastic, eager young people. It is my highlight as well. I thank you. Another highlight, you may take it for granted, the location of this inaugural lecture and the presence of these formidable speakers demonstrates to us that access to knowledge and expertise no longer is determined by proximity to or possession of a bigger set of material resources. A big thank you on our part as the NSG. Now, I recognize again, having had a similar line earlier, I recognize that the necessity to connect theory, strategy, especially strategic intent and practice, and recognizing that answers to the very questions asked lies many times within. I'm posing 3 questions back to you. Okay, I did not see Ambassador Tigo's slides, so I'll be curious to see line for line what he is posing. And I heard Prof. Masrumule earlier asking in a certain manner. So my first question is, which issue and or capability would you like to see embedded in your public affairs, public governance, public administration program as a student? And same in your continuous professional development opportunities if you're already serving as a public servant. This is against the background of the theme of today and the lectures presented. That's the first question. The second question, where do you see real opportunity for innovative public governance and public services in the age of intelligence? And how do you intend to contribute to seizing that opportunity? Third, what radical shifts in policy and strategy do you propose, or are you already working on, with what implications for partnerships? A bonus one for the young ones, especially as prolific users of social media. What risks and mitigations are you self-educating yourselves about? And linking back to the 3 questions, with what possibilities for impactful use solutions for the kind of life-centric, people-centric, development-oriented impacts that we wish for in society. May I conclude by saying this initiative, this particular initiative is designed to be a yearly occasion. It's called an annual public lecture, but in between there will be spaces for open masterclasses as we do as the NSG, and many opportunities will be cooked in between for further collaboration. So we look forward to hearing from you in how you're responding to these questions in action, how these are finding expression in the institutional agendas for action, and in the manner that you are equipping yourselves as future public servants and or current public servants, as entrepreneurs, in especially being innovative leaders positively impacting society. Program Director, allow me to take advantage of an observation we made. Hopefully this is not out of line. Online, we have amongst our participants, the Speaker of the Northwest Provincial Legislature, Dr. Mohono. I'd like to ask Honorable Speaker if you may just comment on your experience this morning. Okay, not sure if she heard the request. Okay, they'll assist her. Thanks, Dr. Mohono. Over to you.
No, thank you very much, Prof. And good day to all the professors, the doctors, students, and academics. I'm on the road because I started while I was still in the house. I'm on the road to another part of the province. But safe to say, Prof, indeed, this is a very, very interesting topic that we are dealing with. And I think the time has arrived for us as policymakers to change the way in which we are doing things, because whether we like it or not, technology is the route to take. And the more we delay, the more the world is evolving and we are left behind as a country. I think it's critical for us, especially on the policy part, that how best do we ensure that technology is being taken serious? You would know, Prof, that in my PhD, I was also looking at technology and agriculture at the same time. Because, for an example, this Middle East war is costing us a lot. How prepared are we as a country to assist with effect of food security? Because we are a food insecure country. But if we want to do things the old way, the native way, is not going to help us until we align ourselves with the globe and ensure that technology becomes our buzzword every day. It's not going to be an easy thing. We are still behind as Africa, but there's always the beginning of everything. Once we are focused on the right direction and ensure that we do the right thing, I'm positive that indeed as a country we'll definitely arrive where other people are. But I'm listening to all the presenters and I had the ambassador, I had other professors presenting. It's very interesting. I'm learning a lot. I'll be giving a lecture in the Mpumalanga University to an agricultural student. A lot of input that they have made is assisting me to beef up my lecture on that particular day. With that said, Prof, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so very much to you. We may clap, colleagues. It's a just-in-time demonstration of that very principle in action of lifelong learning, interest from the heart in walking the talk, regardless of, again, as we said, where you are and what you have. Do something. Opportunity, just in time. Daden Chabeleng, we believe you are somewhere online. Oh, he's already out. Okay. Would have loved for him just to say a word or two. Nonetheless, equal and I would say a repeat of acknowledgement of Office of the Premier. Some are here and others would have been online. Program Director, I hand back to you. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Paile. Thank you so much for those reflections and also for those questions that you posed to us. We are now at the point where we want to express our gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very marvelous opportunity for us to gather and engage on this important reality that we are facing, digital transformation. We are now going to have gifts handed over, and to do that is our campus rector, Dr. Walter Chamano. Doc, you can come. I will be instructing you for today. You take instructions. So the first, we want to thank all the participants that have all the participants who have taken part. Okay, I will not comment on that. We want to first of all acknowledge Mr. Melvin Lubeka, you can come to the fore so that we express our gratitude to you in the form of our camera people, I'm sure. Thank you. Mr. Lubeka, we know you're a busy person and you sacrificed your time to come and be with us. We are grateful. Even next time when we call you, please accept our invitation. We want to learn a lot from you, especially considering that you are an Oxford scholar. So thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate you. The next person that we want to thank is the TUT Polokwane campus, is the acting principal of the National School of Government. Ms. Mkwananzi, we thank you for accepting to be our partner. Yes, the campus director will say permanent partner, and we are happy. No, we don't allow divorce on this one. Thank you very much. And please, I hope we're going to have many more programs. I know you have many programs. Polokwane, you see, we are happy that we are working to its TUT and NSG. But we want to emphasize the detail, TUT Polokwane campus in Limpopo, because of our peculiarity. You have shown something good. Others would have said we can't go to Limpopo. You would have said no, we want to work with the Gauteng campuses, but you came here, and your presence particularly is what touched us, and we are very grateful. We can't wait for the next project. Thank you, ma'am. In absentia, the Director General of the Limpopo Provincial Government, our campus director has already said that the provincial government is our other permanent partner. We work on so many things together, and we are appreciative of that relationship. And to just show a token of appreciation that we appreciate the relationship, we have a gift for the Director General. It will be, oh yes, a representative. Let's clap hands, a representative from the DG's office. Office of the Premier, thank you. From the Office of the Premier. Yeah, the photo must. And ma'am, please extend our gratitude to him. Yes, please. We are looking also forward to projects with the provincial government. The next one is DDG Mushaloku from the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. Who was here? You heard him. He shared his knowledge. And maybe DDG, as you say something very, something that is coming from my heart. You talked about you doing research in your policies and other. TUT Polokwane campus has capacity to do research. So of course we will talk about the other side, but we have capacity, and when there are future opportunities for research and consult on various areas, the way that I want, but we are giving you the Okay, the next one, you saw, ladies and gentlemen, our PhD student who spoke online, and you'd agree with me that that was brilliant. And it's just the little that we are showing you of what it is. You heard the questions from our diploma. If you are all still online, we are saying thank you. We'll find a way of sending the gift, but there it is. And thank you very much for participating in our program. We there's also Prof. Paile. Prof, thank you very much. We do have a gift for you, but it is in the office and we will give you when we are having our lunch. Thank you very much, Canvas. Thank you. I'm now handing over time to Prof. Ilse Swartz to give us a vote of thanks. But let's remain seated. After the vote of thanks, they are going to be, they call it item 13. Others call it announcements. So we will have announcements.
All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity. You know, today everything went about change, and everything is changing and transformation and change and change. But, you know, there are things that do not change. And one of them is that it is impossible to organize an event like today without people. That will never change. It doesn't matter how much technology we have. We always need and require people. And therefore, I just have the privilege to recognize that this event took some people to put everything together. I'm going to start, Dr. Chamanu. Thank you very much for your words this morning about putting the significance of such an event into context. We appreciate it, especially if you look at it into context of TUT strategy for the next 10 years. And with that, also the CMC that approved that this event can be taken up on our campus and in this venue. So thanks very much for that. I also really want to say thank you to Ms. Pandile Mgwazi and Prof. Masemola, which is our Dean for Humanities, and that they also did the resetting, because I think it's always very important to understand the scene in which something takes place. Then very important, our guest speakers, and I must say I was extremely impressed by our guest speakers. I always thought it's only lecturers that can speak good. And then you hear presentations like today, and then I think, oh, maybe we as lecturers have to go back to the drawing board and learn to present again. But Ambassador Philip Tigu, that was very good. I was very valuable information. And also, Mr. Melvin Lubeka, I told you just now, you have such a beautiful voice. I would be one of your students, always being in class, listening. Yeah. Okay, I'm an old lady, ne? But a young man with a beautiful voice is always making so much sense. So for me, it was two very valuable presentations with very good information. And I know that dear Professor Pillay said the highlights, but you know what was for me one of the highlights over both presentations, which is something I think we can all take away. You know, when we talk about digital transformation, the one thing that digital transformation actually asks is that each of us here sitting here change our minds. And for me, that was the strong point, that we can change our minds, and how we think nothing is going to change. So thank you very much for that. And then the respondents, I think the TUT PhD student, Ms. Chepun Dluvu. Thank you so much for your insight. It's so exciting to see the journey that PhD students walk. And then from a practical viewpoint, and I think that made it for me so much essence today. And I thought your presentation was so struck point. Really, thank you very much, Mr. Mshlungu. I also gain a lot from that. So really, I think lots of information, and thank you for that. And with that, I think also we have to thank the TUT organizing team and the lead of the Faculty of Humanities. I think they have done exceptionally well. And I know that this would have never been possible without the wonderful work of your school and the work that they do. And Mr. Radebe, I see you are fit running around organizing everything. So thank you for taking our hand. We truly, truly appreciate it. And then for all the government officials online who are here, thank you so much online sitting here. We believe, and I know now you think it's an older white lady talking there, but here from me, I know we can do nothing without the government. So see it from that point. And our students, I'm so glad you are here. You are our hope. You are our future. You are the next generation. And we truly appreciate you being here. And Prof. Ricky, I think there's a good big thank you for you, but it seems the students think that they can do it better than me. So I'm going to give the opportunity for the students to say that. Thank you. I wanted to do it, but I'll leave it to them. They're younger and faster. So over to the students. Florence, who's the student?
Oh, the students, they also said to me they want to say something to Prof. Nkonza. In fact, they said they want to dance to Prof. Nkonza. Something. While preparing that song, while he's preparing the song, and the National School of Government also, the acting principal has some gifts, and okay. Okay, the first one. Okay.
Thank you very much. While they are preparing to give their gifts, I just want to also acknowledge maybe from the Faculty of Humanities, in terms of organizing, I did very little. I want to Ms. Mshauli to just stand up. She did a marvelous job in terms of running behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Also, the engine room of the faculty, Ms. Ramolosha. I wouldn't be anything without you. I did this, Prof. Swartz, because I know you don't want. Thank you very much.
Okay, the principal has a gift for our speaker, Mr. Lubeja. Melvin. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and the third one, it's campus rector. Okay, and they have another one to our respondent, Tsepiso, and they will send to Tsepiso. This one is for the faculty manager, Mr. Prof. Mkonza.
The students, who propose that I dance, come and join me. You must come here. I want 3 or 4 who come and join me. No. Ladies and gentlemen, I think DJ, you can pause a little bit. You can pause just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I know we are now in that mood, but let's just hold our horses a little bit. You have been given tickets. Some have received blue tickets, others have received green tickets. Those who got green tickets must go to the campus rector's foyer. We have our student assistants who are going to be leading us. Those who received blue tickets, you are going to the library extension. Our student assistants are also going to lead us.